Hello, you're listening to Coffee and Culture. We're on Talk 1260 and 103.7. That's KTRC in Santa Fe, streaming at santafe.com. I'm your host every other week, and my name is Matthew Chase Daniel. And I have today a special guest who I've known for close to 60 years. Um, I believe we met first in 1965, near the end of October. Um, and that's because we've known each other so long because Karen Chase, who is my guest today, is my mother. And it's a thrill to have her on the show and have her coming to Santa Fe um, for a visit and for a reading from her new book. And the reading's at Collected Works on September 7th at 4:30 in the afternoon. Collected Works is in downtown Santa Fe. And welcome, Mom.
Great to be here.
Yeah. So we're talking by Zoom. You're in Lenox, Massachusetts. I'm in Santa Fe. Uh, we talk on the phone a lot, but we rarely Zoom. So it's nice to see your face.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah. Um, so your new book is Two Tales, and Jamali Kamali and ZundelState. And Jamali Kamali is a book-length poem that you wrote a number of years ago and was published in India. Um, but this is the first time that it's published in North America as part of this book. And it's appropriate that it was published in India originally because it's a poem that was inspired and started during your visit to India when you were a resident at Sanskriti Foundation, yeah?
Yeah,
And um, and it's inspired by a visit to a tomb there um, in in Delhi, in New Delhi.
in Delhi.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about that experience that led you to creating this work.
Well, it was in 2004, and I was in Delhi on a writing residency for a month. And a few days after I got there, all the residents at Sanskriti were taken on a bus to a park in the center of Delhi. And we were taken there because there had been a restoration of something called the Jamali Kamali Mosque and Tomb, and it was about to open to the public. So we get there, and it's a long walk through brush and unrestored monuments, and you get to a plateau up on a hill, and there's a brand new sign as you're entering, which says, Jamali Kamali. This is the tomb of Jamali and Kamali. Jamali was a 16th century Sufi court poet, and Kamali's identity is unknown. And then we were taken into this really magnificent little tomb with two marble graves. And the conservator points to one grave and says, "This is Jamali's grave. He was a Sufi court poet and saint. And this is Kamali's grave." And people say that he was Jamali's homosexual lover.
Hmm.
And I was very startled after having just read the sign that said his identity was unknown. And I asked the conservator about that. And he said, well, we would never say that on a sign in India because of the large Muslim population, and it would be disrespectful to their beliefs. And nobody really knows who Kamali was, but that's what the oral tradition has carried on for centuries. So I went back to my desk at Sanskriti and I just sat down and started writing as if I was Jamali speaking to Kamali. I had no plan to do this. I just started writing. And I wrote the whole month I was there. And by the end of that month, I had finished the first part of what ended up being a book made up of four parts. And when I went home to Massachusetts for the next year and a half, I just kept writing this book that came out of me. It was a very unusual experience for me as a writer because it felt absolutely given without fail.
Uh-huh.
Like I was just driven.
You weren't work. It was coming through you in a way rather than you like intellectually trying to come up with what made sense for the next part, or it was
Right.
just flowing out.
Yeah. Um, Although I did a ton of research, I read a lot
Hmm.
about that time in Delhi because although the book is a complete fiction from my imagination or wherever,
Right.
um, I wanted the details to be absolutely fact correct and factual about Delhi at that time. Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed, and I didn't notice when I was just reading it this week that I didn't notice it until I got to the end of Jamali Kamali that there's notes on the some of the terminology and stuff, whether it's a kheer is a kind of pudding or a kurta is a kind of tunic or all these different proper nouns that are referred to. And those are all came out of your research, I imagine.
Yeah. Or words that I heard when I was there.
Yeah.
Like if you're in India, you hear the word kurta and then you hear the word kheer.
Yeah, I've heard both words and I've never even been to India. So, um, and the was there tolerance for homosexuality in 16th century India?
um, I would say yes and no. Certainly, men had relationships with men, and it was okay. And in certain circles, it was okay as a passing thing.
Hmm.
But I don't think there was tolerance otherwise.
Right. And there's not so much tolerance now either.
Well, it waxes and wanes. I think right now is not a good time. I mean, it's not a good time anywhere right
Right.
now.
Um, it's it reminded me just in the rhythm of it and the imagery of that poem of like I don't know, devotional, erotic, like the Song of Solomon, from the Bible, which is just
Yeah,
very much in that vein. Um,
I know. And that wasn't on purpose. And I've read that in the Bible and I've loved it. So I guess,
it's part of the mix inside your brain and your body that
yeah, I guess so.
that comes out. Yeah, I printed out a copy of it yesterday just to read it a bit, and it has a lot of that same rhythm, and the Song of Songs, which is Solomon's. Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, for thy love is better than wine, because of the savor of thy good ointments. Thy name is as ointment poured forth. Therefore do the virgins love thee. It goes on and on. Um,
Right, but I didn't use. I mean, there were no thys or these
no,
in
it's more
my.
personal
Yeah.
in a way. Um, well, we have to go to a break. We'll be back in just a minute. Talking to Karen Chase about her book Two Tales, Jamali, Kamali, and ZundelState, and She'll be reading at Collected Works on September 7th at 4:30 p.m. here in Santa Fe. We'll be right back. You're back listening to Coffee and Culture on Talk 1260 and 103.7 KTRC, streaming at santafe.com. Podcasts of past conversations for the show you can find on your favorite podcast platform. Look for Coffee and Culture with Matthew Chase Daniel. And I am Matthew Chase Daniel, and I'm talking today with Karen Chase, who is a close relative of mine who I've known for years, and she is my mother. And she's doing a reading at Collected Works on September 7th at 4:30 p.m. I just read a little bit of the beginning of the Song of Solomon, which your Jamali Kamali poem reminded me of a bit. And now maybe you could read some from your poem.
Sure, I'll just read the first page.
Great.
In the plump dusk, I hear a peacock screech, eye marks on my lover's neck. Kamali, let's go to the lake to moisten our love scars. I will wash mud from your muscled legs. My secrets rest in the wedding hut. I visit another man as the moon circles down. Come, my protege, my Kamali, to bed. I will show you moves of a new planet like no astrologer could. Bonfires blaze in Delhi's winter. While dogs howl, I remove your kurta, your trousers, to teach you pyrotechnics. I am not called Professor of Fire for naught.
Nice. Good.
Glad you like it.
Yeah. It's unusual. I've talked to you before about this, but there's this interesting history that is going on with the history of Jamali and Kamali and the tomb and the history of them as people, and then the publication of your book, and then how your book has become part of the story that's melded into the history. And I know you've talked about that before, but it's very interesting. Can you talk a little about that?
Sure. The book came out in India in 2011.
Mm-hmm.
And a few years after that, I was Googling the book to see how it was doing. And I came across a Delhi travel site that suggested people visit the Jamali Kamali Mosque and Tomb. And the article went on to quote lines of my poem as if they were written by Jamali. And I was really upset, and I got in touch with the website, and I told them, and they fixed it. They changed it so it was accurate. But then I kept looking it up, and to this day, my poem keeps being referred to as written by Jamali. And I've given up trying to correct it because what I've realized is that is part of how history gets formed, that history is such a mess. I mean,
Right.
It's such a mixture of facts and fiction and hearsay and lies.
Right. And subjectivity, who's telling the story of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's that phrase, whatever history is written by the victors or whatever, you know. And so it's those.
Dear.
What's that?
Oh, dear.
Oh, dear. Yeah. That those who have a voice write history, and then it becomes codified and goes, whether it's in guidebooks or history books or wherever, it becomes the story. And so your experience was sort of a revelation for you of being more aware of the truth and lies of history.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us are aware of that anyway, but it was just very surprising to be part of it. Actually, I did a reading recently and I was talking about this, and someone in the audience said, "Do you like that?" And I said, "Well, at the beginning, I really didn't like it, but actually now I kind of do like it." Um, just to be part of the flow of things.
Yeah. Yeah. And in that history that where it is cited as his poem, are you credited like your book credited
Yeah,
or not?
yeah,
Sometimes,
yes,
yeah.
yeah. Like if you want to learn more about them.
Right. Well, congratulations on being a great scholar and translator of 16th century Sufi poetry. Who knew? Um, and in that, there's four sections in that poem, and the first sections are Jamali talking to Kamali, and the last section is Kamali writing to Jamali. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And it's a different voice. Um,
Very much so.
yeah, much more Jamali being much more grand and eloquent and um, lots of words.
And
And
he's more talkative.
yeah, and Kamali being more like physical and embodied and maybe more um, reluctant in that way.
Yeah, I mean, when I was writing it, it kept being Kamali who was speaking, and I kept thinking, when is Kamali gonna speak
Right. It was
up?
Jamali speaking. Right.
It was I'm sorry, Jamali speaking.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, it was like, oh, Kamali is ready to talk now.
Right. And it's both his sort of reluctance and less talkative nature and the nature of the situation where it's not celebrating this um, emerging love and eroticism, but loss and fear and
Right.
death. And I have a note here, birds sang single notes. I assume that's something I wrote down from him
Yeah.
speaking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas before there's no single notes. It's lots of
Yeah.
notes. Yeah.
No, it's funny. Like, I don't actually remember that line, but when you say birds sing single notes, it's like, yeah, Kamali would say that.
Yeah.
Like, definitely.
Yeah. And so when the book was released in India, it sold in India. Did it also come to North America and was there
Yeah,
distribution
you could
here?
buy it. They had a distributor that was like some antique dealer out on Long Island. I mean, it wasn't really a real distributor, but you could buy it on Amazon.
Uh-huh. So it'll be more broadly, just it's more broadly
Yeah,
distributed now.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's published by a Canadian publisher, Guernica.
Guernica World Editions, yes.
Yeah. Um,
They're based in Toronto.
yeah, that's wonderful. And it came out in May or June of this year,
Yeah,
is that right?
May came out in May, and the audio book was just released.
Oh, right. And that's a well-known audiobook.
A golden voice narrator called Vikas Adam.
Yeah. I haven't heard it yet, but I've heard that he's a great reader of this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you can buy that audiobook wherever you get audiobooks, and you can buy the book itself, the old-fashioned what we used to call a book, um, at Collected Works. So if you go to Collected Works, I wrote it down somewhere, collectedworksbookstore.com, if you go to events upcoming and then go to September 7th and click on there, you'll get a page that has information about the reading and information about buying the book through Collected Works, which is our wonderful local bookstore here in Santa Fe, one of not the only local bookstore, but they do wonderful readings and have great books and are downtown, and they even have coffee, like any real bookstore. um, so we have to go to another break. We'll be right back. My name is Matthew Chase Daniel, talking with Karen Chase about her new book, Two Tales, Jamali Kamali and ZundelState. Okay, you're back listening to Coffee and Culture. My name's Matthew Chase Daniel. I'm talking with my mother, Karen Chase, about her new book and audiobook called Two Tales, Jamali Kamali and ZundelState. And we've been talking about Jamali Kamali, which you wrote a number of years ago and is just coming out in North America now. And this second half of the book is a more recent piece. So Jamali Kamali takes place hundreds of years in the past, and ZundelState, the other half, takes place 1,000 years in the future. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's hard to describe what it is. Is it a story? Is it a poem? Is it science fiction? Is it's sort
Yes,
of
yes, yes.
it's all of those things. Yeah, it sort of defies genre in a way to me. Um, I'm not a big reader of science fiction, um, but I find it reading this, it's like with science fiction, you can invent a world and you don't have to follow the norms of history or of culture in certain ways. The way, which is interesting because the other half of the book, Jamali Kamali, it turns out you were inventing history there, and now you're inventing a history of the future in ZundelState. So the two are related in that way, I
Yeah,
think. Does that make some sort of sense?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel both tales address history in very different ways.
Yeah. And so with science fiction, you can make up the name of a place, the name of a government, the rules that life is lived by, all of those things, but they still need some sort of coherence in that we can relate to, because if they're just gibberish, then who bothers reading the thing, right? So it has to draw us in, and part of the way, since you're my mother, and I know a lot about you, um, I see things in the writing that are recognizable to me. Like ZundelState, state is like the country, the state, the government. And Zundel, that name comes from your father, which, and I can tell the story or you can, but when his mother, your grandmother, my great grandmother, was giving birth in the early 20th century in a hospital in the Bronx, um, she wanted to name her son, it was a son who was your father, Zundel, which was a family name from the old country, from Belarus,
Her
Minsk.
father's name.
Oh, it was her father's name. Right.
Yeah.
But she also wanted him not to have some weird Jewish name from Belarus because now they were in America and it was assimilation and moving ahead in America. It was good to have an American name. So she asked maybe the nurse, the attending nurse there at the hospital, what's a good, I'm not going to do her voice. What, what's a good American name that sounds like Zundel? And the nurse said, Zenas, Zenas. So he got named Zenas so he would have an American name and fit in, which that name didn't really work out for that purpose. It was a good name. And my middle name. Um, so ZundelState is sort of named in an odd way after your father.
In an odd way. Yeah.
Yeah. or your great grandfather.
Right, right.
Right. And ZundelState is in your book is the controlling.
Repressive dystopian state.
Right. And they got a lot of rules and a lot of control.
Right.
Right. And your father had a lot of rules and a lot of control. No?
Though not over me so much.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, that's good. Um, it's interesting. I mean, there is that sort of relationship of parents and children and control and expression and repression and all of those things. So it had some um, resonance for me in that, but maybe that's not so much for you. Um, so in this story, it's a love story, as ZundelState is also a love story between Joe and Mariana.
Right.
And so that's a universal thing that is in the past hundreds of years and in the future hundreds of years and in the present and in your life and my life and a lot of people's lives. Um, and so that's sort of the thing, the stickiness that brings us in to some degree, would you say?
Well, yeah. I mean, the love and the attachment and the relationship between the two main characters is timeless. I mean, they're all timeless. No matter what situation you're living in. If you're living in 16th century Delhi, you keep secret that you have this homosexual relationship. And if you lived 1,000 years from now in ZundelState, you keep secret that you have this relationship.
Right. And the two characters, Mariana and Joe, are opposites in a way. They see themselves as opposites or they're described as opposites. And so they have this love, which is in a way despite their differences and in a way because of their differences.
Yeah, I think maybe because of their differences.
Right. And that's something in sexuality and eroticism and love that we're attracted to others who are other, who have something to show us or something for us to experience that's different from who we are, not the same. Is that,
Right.
you think that's
Yeah.
true? Yeah. Yeah. So Mariana in the beginning, she's this like teenage girl discovering everything about herself, becoming a adult, becoming a woman, sensuality, food, language, culture, imagination, all these things are sort of bubbling up in her teenage self in the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in the very beginning, but very quickly she's paired with Joe.
Right. And she's works for the state. She's a part of the repressive regime. She's a functionary in the repressive regime, right?
She's a functionary in the history shit apparatchik part of the government.
History shit apparatchik. Yeah.
Yeah. And Joe um, is crazy in love with history, and history in ZundelState is banned.
Right.
So he has dedicated his life to uncover history.
Right. And he makes these long journeys to like discover objects in the
In the
what
junkyards.
the junkyards, right, which are sort of outside of the main cluster of civilization, these sort of
Right.
dangerous zones on the edge of civilization where you can find little keychains from the Donut Corporation of America.
Maybe you should talk about that.
Yeah, we have to go to our last break. So we have 10 minutes or so left. We'll be right back. I'm talking with Karen Chase. Okay, you're back. Matthew Chase Daniel talking with Karen Chase, who is a writer, lives in Western Massachusetts, is coming to Santa Fe to read at Collected Works. You can go to their website and check it out, September 7th. Um, so one thing you're draw it's all this fictional sci-fi future stuff, but you're drawing on your things you know. They say write about what you know, and you say you're writing about you're not you're doing the opposite. You're writing about things you don't know. But in fact, I don't think there's a way you can write or create things that aren't out of who you are and what you know. So I recognize as your son and your your father's grandson, history and personal things that I know about you, like Einstein's brain getting driven across the country. I think you were visiting me here once in Santa Fe. We went to a friend's house, and there were this guy who was on his way across the country stopped in and had Einstein's brain in the car. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. At Clarence Scott's house many years ago. And so that makes its way in. And there's someone in your story licking slivers of Einstein's brain that gives you visions and moves you into things. And then there's also a bunch of stuff about potatoes, which seems to be a recurring theme in your writing. And
I never realized that before, but yeah,
yeah,
potatoes.
yeah, potatoes are great. And it reminds me of that Gertrude Stein quote, which says about writing, forget about grammar and think about potatoes. I think, is that right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so there's there's a connection between love and sex and food. Um, and this sort of sensuality and embodiedness comes a lot through food. Both in actually both of these pieces, we're talking about ZundelState now, but also in Jamali Kamali, there's great specifics and visions of animals and plants and birds and foods and all of those things. So in this, a lot of it is about donuts. Um, and you've come up with this, and Albert Einstein is a character, and I believe some of the stuff you've said about Einstein is based on historical fact, if that such a thing exists anymore. And some and some of it is out of your imagination. And Einstein is sort of blended in a way with your father, Zenas Block, who was a scientist, as was Einstein, and was very much aware and influenced by Einstein's thinking of that because it was that era or soon after, when he was working as a scientist. So Zenas was a food chemist and he worked for the Donut Corporation of America in New York. And he worked in Japan a lot, helping. This is post-war Japan, 1970s, traveling to Japan to work on perfecting, helping the Japanese manufacture, come up with recipes and ways of making frozen foods, including frozen donuts, um, which never took off, frozen donuts. But instant coffee, there was a whole bunch of different things that he worked on over the years. Um, so in your book, Einstein is maybe the inventor of the donut.
Yes. In my book, Einstein, well, in my book and in real life, Einstein was miserable that his theory of relativity somehow led to the atomic bomb
Right.
and to what happened in Japan. And he invents donuts in order to comfort the Japanese. And he wants donut stands on every corner in Japan as comfort food. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if you know this, but in um, after the Vietnam War and the incursion into Cambodia, there were many Cambodian refugees who moved to Southern California. And there was one Cambodian um, guy who started a donut shop and it was successful. And he basically came up with a formula for running a business plan and recipes to make donuts because it was a profitable, easy to start business. And he sponsored many refugees over a long period of time who came from Cambodia and opened donut shops all
You
over LA. And there is a donut shop on almost every corner in Los Angeles.
you are kidding me.
And then the children who grew up in those donut shops all went off to college and, had different careers and, a successful group of people. But some of those kids came back and took over their parents' donut shops as their parents aged out of the business. And those are called the donut kids. And they run all these now there's like they've transformed into fancy donut shops where you can get a croissant based donut, a cronut it's called, or a matcha donut, or a ube donut, or all these weird crossover delicious donuts in LA.
How do you know all this?
I think there's a film about it. I heard about it on the radio, and I the last time I was in LA 6 months ago or so, Quill and I, my son, your grandson, um, we would went on a little quest to try all the best donuts around Los Angeles.
Oh my God, this is fascinating.
Yeah, donuts. They're good. They're good. We just had our Dunkin' Donuts here in Santa Fe was just they redid the signage. Now it's just called Dunkin', as I know you have in the East already, but it's finally made its way to Santa Fe. So potatoes, donuts, science, automats. You've long had a fascination with the automat. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Um, yeah, um, in ZundelState, there are automats, but instead of selling food, they have the little compartments, each with a book. And you go to the automat, you put your money in, you open the little door, you pull out the book, and you go to a table and you eat the book. And that's how you digest literature,
Mm,
by eating the book.
right. And so that's part of this sort of theme that runs throughout where food and thought are sort of equated.
Not on purpose.
No. Well, that's what I wrote in my notes. And for those who don't know, automats were a thing that happened when in the 50s, 60s,
40s, 50s, 60s.
and you would go in, it was like a diner, but instead of a counter and all of that, there were machines like cigarette machines or candy machines or soda machines, but they had sandwiches and
But
hot meals.
they weren't machines like candy machines. They were walls with little glass compartments.
Yeah.
So, like it would be a wall with lots and lots of
And
glass.
they would feed them from behind,
Yes.
from the kitchen. And then how would you get it out of the compartment?
You put your money in and then you pop open the door.
I see. So it's like a room that's a vending machine in a
Yeah.
certain way. And
Yeah.
you
And in ZundelState, in the automat there, a lot of the books have food names like a raisin in the sun.
all right. Yeah, that's a great list of books in there. Um, we're about out of time, so I just want to reiterate what people can come and hear you read. And So you're going to read, and then we're going to also have a little conversation there at Collected Works, you and I, continue this conversation we're having now and have been having for the last 60 years. Um, and that's at Collected Works, which is at 202 Galisteo Street in downtown Santa Fe at 4:30 p.m. At Collected Works, and it's free to come in, and you can listen to Karen read from her book, and you can listen to Karen and I talk about the sort of things we've been talking about here, but and more. And
You
you can
have work there.
Oh, and I'll have some of my photographs from a few years ago hanging on the walls from Loggerhead Key. Um, Also, before we go, I want to mention that there is mention of the Frito Pie Museum in the book. For all of you who have never heard of the Frito Pie Museum, this is your chance to learn more. You can order the book at Collected Works. You can order the audiobook wherever you get your audiobooks. And thanks, Mom.
Thank you, sweetie pie.